Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Listen, you've heard my hashtag different, better, more. What will you do differently, better, or more of in 2023? Some of you have already committed to healing from grief by working with me and my non-clinical approach to grief recovery and support. But for those of you who want to round out your healing with a clinical approach, there's BetterHelp and their network of over 25,000 licensed therapists. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service and it's 100% online. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether that's by text, by chat, phone, or even video. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you, with more scheduling flexibility and at a much more affordable price. Use this link to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/C-words. That's better, HELP.com/C-words. Ooh, those effing C words. Change and confidence, child. 2 words that are so scary they may as well be curse words. Let's talk about it. On this podcast, we'll share our stories about hardship and starting over, making professional pivots, ending relationships and friendships, and having the confidence to navigate change. I'm Marcia Cork, the change coach, and this is Ooh, Those Effing C Words. Sports Illustrated Fan Nation called him one of the most impactful players in the ACC in 2022. He's ranked second in the country in both total tackles and solo tackles. He's earned a first-team all-conference selection, been named to the Sporting News All-American Second Team, the unquestioned leader of the Tar Heels defense. He has more accolades than I can name or understand, and even with all of that, I get the most joy out of watching his post-game interviews. He gives a good interview, and that's why I'm so excited to have him on the show today. He is UNC Tar Heels inside linebacker Cedric Gray, and he's my not-so-little cousin. Cedric has towered over me probably since he was about 14. So welcome to the show, Ced.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And alongside him today is his NIL agent, Sumner, who has a story that actually embodies the conversations we have on this show, a life dedicated to basketball, and then a turning point, a life event that kind of changes everything. Welcome to the show, Pet. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for being willing to share your story.
Of course.
So when it comes to sports, I feel like we really only know, the highs, the highlights, the stats, the projections, all those types of things. You guys do interviews all the time, but this is going to be a bit of a different angle. I know you've been prepped. The show is about navigating change, but it's also about, the grief and the fear and uncertainty that come with that change. And we're going to apply that change today to the decisions you make along your career to go pro, right? So I want to talk about the game changer later. That is the NIL, protecting an athlete's brand, optimizing social media, all the things, but not so technical because your girl is not really into football that much.
You can't say that instead. You can't tell say you're not in football.
All right, so let's get started. I'm going to jump into the early years. I want to have both of you share your earliest memory of being introduced to sports and share the point when it turned from recreation to knowing that this is something you want to do long term.
Go ahead, Seth. You're the superstar, buddy.
Yeah. I've been playing, sports, basketball, football, since I was little. As little as I can remember, probably 4 or 5 years old. Okay. So that was kind of something that was embodied into me very, very early. And I enjoyed it and I loved it and became pretty good at it. And I think probably when I got like my freshman year of high school, maybe it was always kind of a dream of mine, obviously get to this level. But I think my like freshman year of high school was really kind of like the point where like I really started to believe like I could do this at this level and even further on to the next level.
Not until high school, really?
Yeah. Like I said, it was always a dream, but I don't think it really kind of became like, this dream can really become true until then.
Okay. So I asked that question because sports is big around here. AAU, all of the different leagues. I don't even know all of the acronyms, but there are so many. I know at that age, 4 and 5, like you said, they get you into, recreational sports and things like that. But it seems like pretty early on, you start finding these different community and regional based teams, and children are set on that path to pro sports pretty early on. I didn't realize for you it wasn't until high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What about you, Pat?
My earliest memory is with my dad in the driveway, just shooting. That's all we used to do, is just shoot. I had the same dreams as said. They just didn't work out like said. My dream was always the NBA. And then when I hit high school, I realized I probably had to lower my expectations. I went to a private school, had a couple offers, and then went to go play college basketball in Maine. Could have gone overseas to a team in Germany, but turned that down because I felt God was calling me to do something a little different. So came back home and, just tried to impact the world in a different way. But sports was always, my dad and I used to get up at 5 a.m. every morning and shoot 1,000 jump shots and run suicides. And so, it was always a dream. But I never was as good as Cedric was at football, as I am at basketball. I don't think Cedric can beat me one-on-one. His basketball coach told me he could yesterday, but I don't believe that. I had a conversation with his basketball coach. No way will I ever accept that. But it was something that was very important to me growing up, and to my dad.
We can make this happen, dude, if you want.
Listen, anytime, bro. When we go to your high school in a couple of weeks, we can have it right there. I'm ready to go.
I would love to see that. I haven't seen you play basketball,
forever.
Yeah. Yeah, because we always thought we all thought it was going to be basketball for you for a while. Yeah.
His coach did tell a story that he was a great defender and he plays very hard. He said they were playing Independence High School and this guy was killing them. And they put Cedric in and Cedric said, I got him. Everybody else just stop. I'm going to guard him. And apparently he shut him down.
Yeah. And which is why you won't beat me. You won't be able to score.
All right, Ced. Okay, that's fine.
I love it. I love the trash talk. All right, so you said your dad has you out, Pat, doing suicides, all of this early on. So was it a dream for him at the time? Was it something that he could see you doing professionally?
My dad can still see me doing it professionally. My dad is he would fly to Maine. Out of 104 games I played in college, my dad came to like 97 of them or something like that. He would fly from North Carolina to Maine and fly back in one night. He was really supportive, tough supportive. If I played bad, he would let me know. And there'd be a text message on my phone. He was extremely tough on me, but I think it made me a little bit emotionally tough, mentally tough.
Yeah.
But he was definitely supportive, always there for my mom was the same way. My mom stayed in Maine the first year I was in college, so she didn't miss a game. She bought an apartment up there for a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, those are the types of stories that I hear. And all these decisions are made very early on. Like I was saying, Surprise said that dream didn't set in for you until high school because they're already having those types of conversations and making those types of life and lifestyle changes in order to pursue that very early on. It goes into the decisions that like I said, choosing high school, knowing how choosing that high school sets you up for college and collegiate sports. So those types of decisions. What was that decision like? Choosing high school then, if this is the point where you want to set your sights on a pro career?
For me personally, it really wasn't, about choosing a high school. I think the way my mom kind of approached it, Miss Esther, she's not really kind of the type to, you know, I guess kind of like chase these kind of things or kind of do all this extra stuff. I think she kind of believed in the original route. You know, I got approached, like even when I got to high school, I got approached by like other high schools to come there and to play and all that. And she was just kind of like, you know, you're going to stay here. You're going to do your thing here. You have plenty of the ability to do that, and you can kind of make your name for yourself that way. So that's how it kind of was for me in high school. So yeah, it really wasn't like you said, like people are, it's different. Like you said, they're going to specific high schools to get to colleges or to get looked by different coaches or just to be on a winning team and stuff like that. And I guess that's something that I really didn't partake in, but it was definitely around me when I was in high school for sure.
Okay. Where did you go to high school, Sid?
Audrey Kell High School.
And what's the scouting process like there?
It's not, compared to a lot of other high schools in Charlotte, is I wouldn't say it's that good.
Okay.
Seb, was independent still dominant when you were in high school, or was that past their point?
No, they weren't still dominant. It was like Mallet Creek and Vance and Myers Park were like the dominant schools when I was there, when I was in high school.
And so for the people who are being strategic, those are the schools they set their sights on?
Yeah.
So what was your earliest disappointment? And this is for both of you. Earliest disappointments when it comes to the sports, once you've set your sights on a long-term career, and how did you rebound?
Go ahead, buddy.
I want to say, like, for me personally, like, I've kind of said this before, like, I felt like I was a little bit underrated coming out of high school. I felt like I didn't get, you know, as many looks as some of my peers coming up in my class and different things like that. UNC was my only Power 5 big time school to even offer me a scholarship. And I guess that was something that I kind of, you know, struggled with in high school, you know, going on visits, having conversations with these coaches, you know, and seeing peers get these offers, but not myself, was definitely something that was, you know, a little bit challenging. But I use it, you know, as motivation and kept it as a chip on my shoulder. And I think, you know, something that I wear prideful, you know, even to this day.
Yeah. And how did that shape your drive, your enthusiasm, your passion for the sports? Just made you go harder?
Yeah. It definitely made me go harder. You know, like I said, I always thought I was, you know, just as good as better as some of those people who were kind of getting those looks in my class. So it just made me, you know, go harder so I can prove that.
And does that have anything to do with where you went to high school?
I don't really, you know, I'm not really sure. You know, you could say that or you couldn't. You know, I mean, you can say a high school, you know, might get you extra looks, but you know, in my opinion, I was getting looked by these people, so I think it was just kind of up to them, you know, whether they thought I was talented enough or not.
Okay. Tell me about the scouting process, like from start to finish, what that's like. The point where people start looking at you, the point where you start looking at colleges looking at you, making your decision. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess this is how I guess the scouting process kind of works. So usually in high school, some of like the most basic types of scoutings is usually most colleges make their rounds through high schools and kind of visit with you know the head coach of that high school, and usually the coach is kind of like what you got, who you got that you think is talented enough to play here, and coaches usually give off recommendations. That's probably like the most basic start of recruiting and scouting. Another way is, like you said, connections, and I think this is where this kind of going to specific high schools kind of come into play at, because, you know, some coaches may, you know, have a lot more connections and contacts with coaches and trust with coaches than other schools. And so that's a kind of another way. Also, there's different camps you can go to. There's camps that are sponsored by like Under Armour or Nike, Adidas, these all types of, you know, like type camps, and they give out rankings, and you do all types of certain camps. That's how people get looked at also. And I'll probably say lastly, you know, these colleges also host camps of their own for prospects and recruits to come through. So I think between between a combination of kind of all that, that's kind of, you know, how names, you know, get out and get fluid. And I think another thing that I will say is, you know, like, the bigger you get, the more schools will just kind of like jump on you. Like, I know, like, there's some kids who might have had, you know, got like 5 or 10 offers, and then in the next like 2 weeks they get to like 30 or 40 because all these schools see them offering this kid, so they're like, oh, he has to be this talented, he's climbing up in the ranking, so we're gonna offer him too, we don't want to miss out on him. So it's a lot going on. It's definitely a very huge thing, and it definitely has its highs and lows, and definitely has a business aspect of it too.
Yeah. And is this all out of pocket? Attending all of the camps, making the right connections?
So some camps are like invite only. Some camps might be out of pocket. I mean, it all just kind of depends. Obviously, like the invite only ones are, you know, probably the more serious ones, ones that are more taken seriously than one that they're, you know, just kind of making money, you know, off of you. So yeah, there's all different types of sorts of ways and different things that you can do to get recruited.
And invite only means they're watching you already.
Yeah.
And at what age does that start?
I mean, usually it'll start in like right when you get to high school. But I mean, I remember like growing up, I played this thing in middle school called FBU, which is stands for like football university, but it was basically this kind of league, kind of referring to what you were talking about, kind of like these regional based little league teams. So it was basically kind of like an all-star team after like our little league or Pop Warner season, whatever you want to call it, that like represented North Carolina, and we played teams in Georgia and Florida and all different types of stuff like that, and they host camps and different stuff like that as well. I mean, there's kids being ranked in middle school, you know, on a national level. So yeah, it definitely can start very, very early as middle school.
Is it the same for basketball, Pet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are kids that change middle schools to get to a better program.
There's like a number one class of 2030 basketball player right now, probably.
There is.
And we're in 2023.
Yep.
Wow.
There's a kid going on Twitter right now. He's in 6th grade. He's a little point guard. He's getting blown up right now. And they're literally saying, like he said, class of 2029, 2030. I'm like,
yeah,
it could be who knows what's going to happen. He's in 6th grade.
Right.
So what do you think? Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, social media, because when we have more of a conversation about NIL, I think those two things go hand in hand. And I don't know if they support each other, if there's any competition, if social media is, I don't know, kind of taboo because they get so much recognition early on from social media. How has that impacted the sport or the recruiting process or the scouting process? Have you made any observations there?
I mean, they definitely go hand in hand. I mean, I think it's made the recruiting process kind of, I guess, easier, you know, especially from a coaching perspective. I mean, and even for a player perspective, I mean, it's a lot more easier, to get noticed now than it was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
With the internet, I mean, everybody's got video. Every game is filmed. People are making highlight videos, all types of stuff. So I think they definitely go hand in hand and made the process easier on both sides.
Okay. So that access only, that invitation only type of camp now social media allows them to put their name in front of some of these programs that exist, because otherwise the only way you would know about them is if organizers of the camp have relationships with the coaches at the different institutions, I'm assuming.
Right.
But now with social media, they're able to, put their name, their performance reels, all of that out there in front of the world.
Right.
Can you position yourself for being seen by the
that also depends on how much you produce, your talent level. I mean, you can only get looked at by who wants to look at you, at the end of the day. I mean, you have to be that good. So, I mean, it all depends on where you want to go. I mean, if you want to go to like a smaller school, it's definitely a lot easier to position yourself to get seen by them than if you want to go to Alabama or something like that.
Yeah.
So it just kind of all depends, But I mean, especially like for people who go to like smaller schools, like maybe FCS schools or D2 schools or stuff like that, like they're kind of putting themselves in front of those coaches, kind of telling them, hey, I want to come here. It's a little bit different, I feel like, than at the higher level. I feel like the higher levels, they come and get you. You know what I'm saying?
You're not going to them.
Yeah. You're not going to them. They're coming to you. So I definitely think for, some smaller schools, this is definitely a plus. Like with this social media thing, I mean, there's plenty of people who are talented enough that might have got overlooked before for some of these smaller schools.
Yeah.
So now that they can kind of strategically put themselves out in front of them, I think that's definitely a good thing for sure.
Okay. Actually, let's go into NIL because that's what we were going to do before you fell off, Pat.
My phone just shut down and said it was too hot. I don't know what that even means, but I'm on a computer now in my office. So
okay. So give me some insight into the NIL process. And we have a couple of questions from some local student athletes here in the DMV area. They want to know about the NIL process as well. When does that start? Does that start as your freshman year? How do you align with NIL? First and foremost, tell me about NIL as an entity itself. Can you give me a little bit of background on that?
I can. So it can start as early as high school. It depends what state. NIL varies by state and by school, it's the wild, wild west. It's a very tough thing, and they got to figure it out. But
who's they?
The NCAA.
NIL?
NCAA's got to figure it out. They got some. It's just a mess right now, but it's working in some ways. So I like it because I love marketing. I believe in marketing, and everybody has their own brand. Like Cedric is his own brand. I mean, he represents himself, but also his family. But it can start as early as high school. I mean, there are some guys who have NIL deals in high school. I know Bronny just got one. That's LeBron's son with Nike, I believe. And there's a kid going to Kentucky out of North Carolina. I can't remember his name right now, but he's got an NIL deal. So, I mean, you can get NIL deals as early as you want to get them. And I would say for me, if a guy like you coming to UNC, it starts as soon as you set foot on campus. So, especially if you're a high enough talent, if you're a big time recruit, your NIL is going to start as soon as you hit the campus that summer. Businesses are going to want to come after you. Alumni are going to give you some deals in exchange for some marketing. So it starts pretty early.
I don't fully understand what it is as an entity itself.
So it's name, image, and likeness is what it stands for. So right now, Cedric just got a deal with a thing called All Things Insurance. Okay. So they're going to pay Cedric, and he's going to do videos on social media. He's going to represent their brand on the radio and on TV, and he'll get compensated for that just using his name, image, and likeness. So they're allowed to use Cedric in their marketing to help their product and brand grow, and he can finally be compensated for that.
And they reach out to Ced?
They reach out to Cedric, and then he'll push them to me, and then I'll speak to him. I'm kind of like to be the middleman. That way Cedric can focus on lifting, playing football, and school.
Yeah. So is it similar to, so you have Sumner Sports. Is it similar to that type of representation?
It is. So yeah, Sumner Sports is my NIL brand.
Okay.
So the Sumner Group is my family's marketing company. It's the exact same thing, but instead of doing marketing for a business, I'm doing it for Cedric. I'm going out and finding Cedric some good deals is my goal.
Okay. And how does the athlete find the agency?
I think Miss Esther contacted me, right, Seth? Your mom contacted me, correct?
Yeah, she did.
I did an interview with the Gaston Gazette. I think that's how she found it. And it was online, and she reached out to me, and I'm actually a Carolina football fan. So when she called, I was pumped. And they came to the office here and we met, and it went really well. He was my second UNC football player. I had another one named Emery Simmons. He is now at Indiana, but Cedric is probably my third client, the longest one.
Okay. And so is that something, I'm trying to connect the dots, follow the bouncing ball, because if you're saying this starts as early as high school, then high school students can optimize this and
they can
start doing research, start aligning with agencies, organizations now.
We can.
Excuse me.
I mean, I think that there's also a lot that goes into that. I mean, like, not like every kid is just, getting these opportunities, even good ones.
Right.
I mean, especially at the high school level. I mean, if you're getting NIL deals at the high school level, that means you're top tier.
Oh,
you're top 10 in the country type of person.
Top 10.
Way up there.
And even at the college level, I mean, like he was kind of referring to, I mean, there's definitely opportunities to make money, for anybody at the collegiate level. But, there is levels to it. Part of it may be your name. Maybe some kids, like you referred to, coming out of high school, he's a big-time recruit, 5-star. He might get those, looks, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Maybe a guy like me, I was a smaller guy, 3-star, so maybe I had to kind of prove myself more before I kind of got different opportunities. So it's a lot that goes into it, I mean, they're not just, out here giving deals just because you go to school, a college school, or you play sports at a school. I mean, it definitely comes with a name, and like you said before, social media, if you have a big following, like you might not even be that productive, but if you have a big following on social media and you're a good marketing tool, then that's something that maybe some companies might attach to.
That's what I was going to ask. So if you, just for brand recognition, if you're not an elite athlete or, top performing athlete, but you've got personality
Right.
and you have accumulated this following,
Right.
Can you reach out? Because that's what I'm trying to make sense of, how the athlete pairs with the agency. How you all find each other.
You got to be marketable. So that's the one thing that, like, if you're not marketable, not even agencies, but businesses aren't going to want you. So, and you got to produce on the field. If you're not very marketable, you just got to produce and be a big enough name. So I think Cedric's a good example of kind of a mixture of both. He's marketable and he produces like crazy, and he gets a ton of camera time. It's something I tell the business I meet with. Like every UNC game, every time, the camera's on set and they say, Cedric Gray, leader of the defense. Even if he's not making a tackle per se, he literally is on camera somehow. They're talking about him.
Yeah.
And he's after every game interview. So I tell all the businesses I meet with, like, your guy's going to get camera time. He's not going to make any mistakes off the field. Like, he's marketable. But banking off what Seb was saying, like, even if you are a big time recruit, like in high school, in my opinion, Bronny James only got that deal because of his name. And I'm sure you agree with that. Like, no way that is a kid from area in Charlotte. Maybe he's top 15 in the country getting a deal with Nike out of high school. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I mean, it's about who your name and who you know. Right. In my opinion, that's no disrespect to LeBron James. LeBron, if you watch this, that's no disrespect.
Yeah, that's no, but it's true. Like they're like high school athletes aren't just getting NIL deals. That's definitely not like how it works. Like you got to be top tier to even get thought about, especially at the high school level.
Even in college, I would say. I mean, it's been like, I think schools like Ohio State and schools that really want to put into their football program will give more deals out, but it's been a challenge. Right. I mean, it's really been a challenge.
Pat, I think you definitely make a valid point. Like, like this is going into recruiting also. I mean, there's different things that schools can do to kind of give their players opportunities through collectives and alumni and stuff like that. So like kind of Pet was saying, schools who are, historically known good at football and alumni that are really, bought into their football team. I mean, they're helping kids get NIL deals right off the bat. The Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Texas A&M, schools like that. There's definitely, more opportunities probably at those schools for NIL than you would say a UNC.
Yeah,
because of that big name that they have at the football level.
Yeah, I mean that's just the truth. I mean, I go to places and honestly, Seth had one of the best years on college defense in a long time, and you go to these people like you said, and they're just like, yeah, I want to learn more about NIL, but if he was at per se like Ohio State, I mean, they would just be yeah, no, we're good. Like it just is what it is. Like I love Carolina, they're doing a good job, but it's just different. Like it's just it's a different mentality for those Big Ten, those SEC schools.
Okay, and so this is all of the kinks that you said need to be worked out. That there isn't really any standardization of NIL representation.
Yeah, I mean there are so many kinks. But that's definitely one of them. I mean, I think people need to be educated. So one of my goals this summer is to have a kind of like almost a learning type class. So I want to invite Cedric, my other guy Puff, and a couple more UNC athletes to do a seminar and explain to businesses how NIL can not just help the athlete, it helps the school, it helps the community, it helps all the businesses around. I mean, if you give to these athletes, it helps. The school can't say that. Like, Matt can't get out there and say, guys, give to my athletes. Like, but I can. I'm not affiliated with UNC. So I want to get out there and let people know, like, hey, like if you can use an athlete to market your product or your brand, why wouldn't you? For one, I mean, if I had a product, I would want Cedric talking about my product if he believed in it. If I made, because it is what it is.
And can that be done outside of NIL? Because this is what I don't understand about NIL. Number one, that it is exclusive to NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean for students who don't have NIL representation and what they can still do with social media? Are there any limitations to what athletes can do to market themselves, to create and establish themselves as a brand if it isn't under the umbrella of NIL?
I mean, yeah.
That question makes sense?
Yeah, no, they can. I think pro athletes can definitely do it. I mean, anybody that's not, and anybody can do NIL. I mean, name, image, and likeness.
Right.
Anybody can do it. It just, might not be called NIL. Like when Cedric goes to the NFL, Pepsi might come to him and say, hey, we'd like you to endorse our product. You know what I mean? And then he can do it because he's an athlete. Pro athlete can do whatever he wants.
Okay.
So, I think this is just kind of like a name that is kind of attached to college sports. I mean, especially because, was it 2 years ago?
Yep.
3 years ago now that they finally allowed college athletes to benefit from their name, image, and likeness and get compensated.
Right.
And be represented by different companies.
So it's not an agency, because that's what I'm thinking when I try to make sense of this and how people can optimize it. Align, do more with social media to establish their brand, represent their brand. I'm thinking this is all under NIL as a governing body of sorts.
No, the NCAA governs it, right? That's what I mean. That's who governs the whole thing is the NCAA.
Okay.
And there's no agency, so SED technically doesn't even need me technically.
Yeah, like I don't have to have an agent to benefit from NIL.
Okay.
Like different companies, like you kind of said to before, can reach out to me directly, and I can communicate with them, and they can try to work a deal with me. But you know, me being on the smarter side, why not get an agent so I don't have to focus on those things? Somebody who's educated in that area of sort can help me and guide me through that process.
Okay.
And the NCAA allows me to have a marketing agent. I can't have a per se NFL agent right now because I'm still an athlete in college, but I am able to have a marketing agent through this new NIL uplift.
So yeah, I'm not an NFL agent. Let's make that clear. I'm clearly a marketing guy. That's it. Not trying to get Seth in trouble.
No, I got okay. And this is making more sense to me now. I was definitely looking at it wrong. In fact, let's take a couple of questions because this actually might unfold a little bit more in your responses to these questions. So we have 2 student athletes here in the DC metro area. The first, Idell Lanigan. Let's hear his question.
Hello, my name is Idell Lanigan, and I attend Riverdale Baptist High School located in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. I'm a quarterback in class of 2023. I'm here with you today to ask you about the NIL process.
Well, it took me half of the conversation, but I finally got it. So NIL isn't an agency at all. It's a permission, basically, a permission granted by the NCAA for their student athletes to align their name, their image, their likeness to brands and to products and services. So agency representation isn't really needed, but it does help athletes secure deals and, help protect the interests of the players. So next week, that's where we'll pick up this conversation. I've got 2 rising collegiate athletes who are ready to seize NIL opportunities. In part 2, Ced and Pet are going to answer their questions and then share the decisions they made when it was time to go pro. All right, MCs, till next week. Bye-bye.
Ooh, Those F and C Words is an independently produced podcast produced and edited by yours truly, Marcia Cork, and made possible with support from listeners like you. To support the podcast, go to anchor.fm/those F and C words /support, or click the link in the show description. If you've made a commitment to self-care in 2023, join my free #DifferentBetterMore challenge on Slack. Come for the accountability, stay for the community. Download the Slack app now and click the link in the show description to join.